specialist Mahjoob Zweiri, who of course is in Doha. Mahjoob, thank you so much for your time. I want to repeat a question I asked 24 hours ago, but it seems to become more relevant now. Has this social media post from Donald Trump made what's happening in Iran a zero-sum game? In other words, he wants a winner and a loser.
Then it's obvious that the United States of America under Trump wants to have some change in Iran, not necessarily regime change, but they want to capitalize on this protests and push towards something. That thing, I would argue, is weakening the regime more and more. And that is basically what they agree on with Netanyahu when Netanyahu was in the States. I think Netanyahu also shares the same interest with Trump that after June 2015, their assumption, the American assumption and the Israelis, that the Iranian government, the Iranian regime is very weak, and that's the time to invest and to capitalize on what's happening in Iran and to push to the maximum of weakness within the regime establishment and institutions.
What do you think he means by help is on its way?
Well, I think there is an interest to, use what's happening in Iran and attack what's so-called sovereign institutions in Iran, so they can weaken the regime more and more, and making the regime basically incapable to respond to this attack if it happens, and also to the people. It's basically distracting what the regime is doing on tackling the protesters. And that is one strategy. The second strategy, I think, is, which I think Israel and the United States agree on, and they share the same interest, is actually having more military attacks on different, I would say, military sites, sovereign sites, like economic sites, so they can weaken the regime economically and in terms of security, so the regime cannot basically face or tackle any future protests if it happens.
If the external pressure, as well as, of course, the mass demonstrations, are going to force some kind of compromise from the government, how do you see that progressing in terms of the hardliners and the compromises that they may be prepared to make just to appease the domestic population?
Adnan, the Iranian government option is very little on the table, to be honest with you. The American and the Israelis already, they agree on one another development which has not been reported, that Iran should not be allowed to enrich uranium. Basically, they request or they call for zero enrichment, which means basically Iran, if they enrich even if 5% uranium, they will be basically facing more sanctions under Chapter 7 of the Security Council. So basically, there is another pressure on Iran. I think it's obvious that already Iranian government, actually, I think they push more than $250 million to help the people and to improve or just push the price of the currency. But again, this needs more time, and the government under severe pressure to balance between security and stability and economic measures. And I think they are not able to do both together. And that is basically what the Israelis and the Americans invest in. This kind of, I would say, confusion that the Iranian government are in now because of what's happening. If we consider the fact that demonstration or protests are coming less and less, and the government is becoming more in control with disconnecting the internet, I would argue that the regime will try to give more indicators that, economy is improving and basically cutting all of the possibilities to have more protests. If this happened, this means the Americans and the Israelis have to find another options or another plans, or other alternatives, how to tackle the future situation in Iran.
But presumably, if President Trump wanted to cause almost a collapse of Iran's economy, he could have placed 100% tariffs rather than the 25% extra for any country that does business with Iran. Why would he choose 25%? Will it be effective?
By the way, Adnan, that is misleading, because according to the international law and the Security Council, all of the resolutions of sanctions on Iran, all countries, because they are members of the United Nations, they are obliged to follow that. If they are not, basically they can be taken to the Security Council and their sanction could be imposed on them. So 25% is another, I would say, psychological war. Because there's no countries today, China, I think some China and other countries, they are dealing with Iran, and they do it very, very in a very smart way. And the Americans, hard to find it and hard to have evidence on that. This is a part of psychological war. And just to say, we are in control in all aspects.
Mahjoob, you enlighten and educate and analyze all at the same time. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.